It's time for the 5th and final round of the first day here at DreamHack Atlanta 2018. My name is Cora Georgiou, and bringing you all the action for our final round of the Swiss will be That's Admirable and reigning DreamHack Atlanta champion, Dr. Jikaninki. Welcome back to the desk, y'all. How are you feeling about the day so far, Admirable?
I think it's been pretty darn fun. We've seen a nice mix of lineups. Saw some Togwaggle Druid, which, you know, didn't have, I'd say, quite the matchup and the performance it wanted. But, you know, we've been seeing a nice mix of decks. And, you know, the format, I think, is quite figured out at this point. I think we know what the best strategies are, but it's nice to see how players are mixing them up, especially because we get Conquest in most of the tournaments, but here it's been last hero standing, so some new lineup strategies involved for that.
Yeah, I've loved to see the diversity that has, you know, been brought to the table. A lot of times when you get this far into a format, you start to see it become a little bit stale, like you were saying, but I think there's a lot of, you know, room for ingenuity. We've seen a lot of even Paladin. We've seen a lot of Quest Rogue, you know, something that we may not typically have seen in the past. So really excited to see how these strategies come together. And like you said, they may have the core 3 decks, but a lot of times it's that 4th deck that kind of catches people off guard.
How the lineups work.
Yeah, and then after today, after round number 5, is when we start to see real lineup trends taking place and where we start to see the real outliers. And then, of course, we're playing 4 rounds of Swiss tomorrow, followed by the cut to top 16, and then the final day will be the top 8. Let's take a look at the standings so far and how the players in this tournament are faring. There were over 200 players when we entered the arena today. Now it's been pared down just a bit. These are the top 20 players as of so far. We've got Monsanto, Gallon, Swaggyg, and Muzzy, 4 big names right off the top. Then we have my brother, Sir Slim, Alan, Many Numbers, Sintalol, Phenom, GLE, Khazgar, Killin' All Day, Ebiera, Flamekilla, who I believe was still undefeated, 12-0 in games.
Wow.
Going into this round. Mugetsu, Bada Trading, and Luker are currently the top 16 cutoff. Right below that, 2 well-known names, Ike and Bloodyface, ETC as well, and then Scritch. So a nice mix of well-known players and relative unknowns at this point, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah, a lot of the list, you take a look at it too, it's names that I personally recognize a lot of times. It's, you know, if you're involved on the high end or ladder, or you pay really close attention to some of the top 32 and top 64 standings that take place at tour stops and things like that. Some of these names you would recognize in that regard. You know, not a lot of specific callouts because a lot of them I don't know personally. I just recognize the names appearing from time to time. But, you know, every single time I come to a tour stop and I start looking at standings, you know, as we approach that halfway mark, it's names always that I start to recognize across the board.
Yeah, I also think there was a healthy mix of, you know, newcomers as well. That's one of the greatest parts about DreamHack is it gives access and opportunity to players that may not have, you know, these tour stops in their local area. Maybe it's an Atlanta local and they just come out to this tournament and show what they've got. It's one reason I've loved DreamHack is just giving people their chance.
Yeah, there's a bunch of players out there that I've gone around and mingled a little bit, met a bunch of people who are like, this is my first LAN, I'm really excited, I'm here to have fun. I'm like, oh, what's your record? They're like, 1-3, 2-2. Not doing great, but they're having a great time at it. This is getting their feet wet, you know, getting the foot in the door, trying out this experience for the first time. And from here on out, you have players like Frid, who was 3-0 going into last round. Now he's 3-1, but this is, I believe, only his 2nd DreamHack experience. Already infinitely better than he did last time.
Yeah, Frid, I believe, hosts a podcast.
He does. He is the host of Hearth Coach.
That's right. I was like, it's right on the tip of my tongue.
Remember the name of the podcast?
Now he's going to call me out for that. He's been asking me to go on this podcast for a long time. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Then just can't next. Point being, there's a lot of opportunities to start playing tournaments. You know, tour stops were a big part of that. You know, when I first started playing cards, going to tournaments was, you know, a big part of the experience for me. That's what I wanted to do, and I scrubbed out of a lot of tournaments for a very long time until I finally put up like a winning record at one. I was like, oh my god, I did it, 5-4. It's hard to do, man.
It takes
I agree
time.
with that.
And you know what? It's awesome to see the wide scope of players we've got here today. Let's take a look at the players we've got in our match going into round number 5. It is a 4-0 matchup between Swaggyg from Team Endemic and Muzzy from Team Tempo Storm. We know a lot about the Muzz, DreamHack Montreal champion from last year. He's a tour stop savant, points leader for the America's region now that Just Sayin has already qualified for the World Championship. Swaggyg we know a little bit less about, but Dr. J, you in particular, you know a good amount about Swaggyg. You guys are friends, right?
Yeah, we're pretty good friends at this point. Swaggyg I got the privilege of talking to over time, not even before he was introduced into Endemic, before he was on that team. Very great, you know, just personality, good guy to talk to as well. He also likes to bring some things that I wouldn't consider traditional. For instance, one of the biggest tournaments, one of the first tournaments I remember seeing his name on was the playoffs, I believe it was summer, a long time ago for this year, and he actually brought a Zoo Warlock when Zoo Warlock was not being brought at all. His lineup was even Shaman Zoo Warlock. That's when Q block was all the rain. And he actually ended up doing very well with it. And through that, I just started talking to him more and more, started picking his brain, seeing how good of a Hearthstone player he was. And I'm glad right now, 4-0, he's getting the chance to prove it.
Well, he's going to have to go up against Muzzy, and he's got a lot to prove here, but a great opportunity to do so. Let's check out the bans and see the decks that these players have brought. You're saying Swaggyg likes weird stuff. He brought Q-Block to WESG last weekend. It didn't go so well for him, but what do we have on the table here today? Rogues have been banned out on both sides, and then we have Druid, Warlock, Warrior, and Warrior, Shaman, Paladin, Admirable. What are the archetypes we're looking at?
Yeah, Quest Rogue banned out on both sides of this. At Swaggyg side, you're looking at Togwaggle Druid, Cube Warlock yet again, and Odd Warrior. On Muzzy's side, it's going to be Odd Warrior, Shutterwalk Shaman, and even Paladin as the Paladin deck that's there. You know, the more I look at lineups for last year's standing, just seems like the more that Quest Rogue makes a lot of sense for any slower deck that's trying to win the game by just having, you know, an overwhelming board position via card advantage towards the end. You know, that's the one thing that Quest Rogue really doesn't give up unless you pressure it, is card advantage. It's one of the issues that it can almost constantly press throughout the game. And so when you have slower decks like, you know, for instance, Togwaggle Druid in the mix, Quest Rogue is one of those decks that can overpower it just almost seamlessly throughout the game. Odd Warrior, a deck that, you know, controls the game heavily at every single state. Doesn't have a lot of burst damage in it. Quest Rogue does a fantastic job of maintaining an offensive pressure against that deck. You know, where it's going to struggle are decks where they combo you in one turn, or decks where they just, you know, blast you in the early game with aggressive minions. But in a last year's standing format, it makes a ton of sense to have that as a pocket counter option.
I also think a lot of players dedicated a lot of their space to bringing some kind of Druid, some kind of Hunter, and most likely the Death Rattle Hunter, and Odd Warrior. And if you just ban out that 4th aggro deck, Quest Rogue just has a great time. I think their worst matchup in that would be something like a Malygos Druid. But even Malygos Druid, a lot of times, you know, you were pretty good off in that matchup in the past. I mean, losing Giggling Inventor is obviously a big hit, but, you know, those seem like 3 pretty good decks I want to have my Quest Rogue into.
Well, not going to see the Quest Rogue here as it has been banned out on both sides, but still, we want to know who you at home are rooting for in this series. Will it be hashtag Swaggyg, or will it be hashtag Muzzy? I know Muzzy's, he's the big Muzz, you know, he's a fan favorite. He's been around forever, former DreamHack champion. Swaggyg, lesser well known, but he brought some cool stuff to WESG last weekend. He's brought some cool stuff here today. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it, how he's going to pilot these decks. He's a more quiet guy, so I haven't had a chance to really speak with him all that much. But from what I've seen, he has a lot to offer as far as Hearthstone play goes. Admirable, do you think he's got what it takes, though, to beat Muzzy in this series?
I'm looking at the lists here, and I in my head, my gut, it feels like it favors Muzzy. I think even Paladin is a great aggressive choice for this tournament, because I think that a lot of players went with mid-range strategies and went with later game strategies, and that's one of those things that even Paladin can really punish. You know, it's resilient minions towards the middle and then big buffs to set on them and deliver high amounts of damage. And I think that's one of the weaknesses of decks like Cube Warlock and like Odd Warrior, is these inflection points of damage where everything pours in all at once. That's really the way that you're going to get those decks with aggressive ones.
Yeah, I will say, though, Swaggyg has a very infamous nickname. And that nickname is Swaggy Always Has Skull on 5G. I have never seen this man not have a Skull of the Minari on turn 5. I was casting him at WSG, and the prophecy foretold that he would have a Skull on 5. And sure enough, he drew a Skull on 5.
Counterpoint. Muzzy always has a 1-drop. They call him 1-drop Muzz. They've been calling it for years. Have you ever seen Muzzy not have a 1-drop? Think about it.
Now that you've put it that way.
Pick a game. If you could tell me it from memory, I'll believe you. But if you have to look it up, it doesn't exist.
Well,
that's how facts and evidence work. If you got to look it up, it's not there.
2 things. One, I'm going to go with Muzz because I firmly believe you never bet against the Muzz. 2, whoever's making up these nicknames, you're horrible. They're terrible.
Oh, no,
we need better nicknames. Something snappy or something catchy or something shorter in general.
I feel insulted.
They're not great. But we want to know who you at home voted for here. Was it hashtag Muzzy, or was it hashtag Swaggyg? Do you agree with me and Admirable, or do you agree more with Dr. Jick and Inky? Yeah, it's not even close. Swaggyg fans,
well,
you've got some work to do, just like the guy who's making up the nicknames. Get some support there in the chat.
Look, Muzzy has become a very popular player through his time winning at events and winning a lot of things, and coming up with new deck lists that eventually became Token Druid before anyone had an idea of that deck even existing. But this is not the right representation for Swaggyg. Swaggyg is a very strong player. I've had him on my friends list for a long time, and every time I look, it's a legend number with 2 digits next to it. very rarely in that 3-digit zone, unless he's playing some wacky stuff, which I know he does from time to time, but even sometimes he's playing the wacky stuff, it's got a 2-digit number to it. Swaggyg is a very good player.
A lot closer than that poll would suggest, but now it's time to find out. Will Muzzy be going 5-0 in the first day of DreamHack Atlanta, or will it be Swaggyg? Let's take it away for our final round of DreamHack Atlanta 2018 day number 1.
That's right, it's round number 5 of DreamHack Hot Atlanta. A couple of hot dudes on the desk.
Admiral, my heart is hurting from seeing that 4% for Swaggyg.
Well, it was 6%, I think.
Okay, give it a little bit of credibility.
That's a 50% increase from what you thought.
Oh, gosh. I just think it's crazy.
Let's find out. Game number 1's getting underway here. Now, the one thing I will say is that I think that the Odd Warrior for Swaggyg is going to have a pretty tough time. I think it's got, you know, a really narrow opportunity to deliver a big win. But Cube Warlock, Togwaggle Druid, I don't think they're in the best spots against Muzzy, but those decks are not exactly passive style combo decks. They can get busy and have some very explosive draws.
I think the Togwaggle Druid is a little bit better situated than, like, you may think at first. I think it's fine against Even Paladin. I would say that Even Paladin probably does have a favorable matchup into there, but Togwaggle Druid just ultimately stomps on Odd Warrior. And then Shaman, it's going to come down to, you know, how consistent that Shaman can draw. I don't think Shaman is the strongest of decks, but a lot of times it does just have that curve, and it curves out to the point where it can just end games on its own.
So talk to me about this matchup here. You know, we haven't really talked much about the Cube Warlock. You know, at one point this deck was dominant in the metagame, and that resulted in the change of some Warlock cards that were too powerful, namely Possessed Lackey and Dark Pact. They used to cost a lot less and heal a lot more. What in this one is important for Swaggyg right here? I mean, you said he always draws Skull Minari early on, but, you know, against Odd Warrior, I don't necessarily think that's his most important tool. I think it's being able to piece together some combo damage. How does he put that together in this deck?
I have to agree. So he has to make sure that he gets the majority of the Doom Guards in the pool for the Gul'dan. He wants to make sure that when he plays that Gul'dan, it does a whole lot of burst damage. I would say in the past, it would be Cube Block favored, but I think with some of the tech choices that the Odd Warrior has chosen to run on top of just the development of the deck, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 50-50 or closer, like, I mean, you can't get closer than 50-50, but a really close matchup, because the Warrior is going to have a lot of the removal pieces that it needs in the early game, and sometimes, you know, just setting up a Gul'dan board, even if it is all Doom Guards, is not going to be enough. Yeah,
take a look at Swaggy's list in particular. It does have a little bit more top end than some of the Cube Block lists I've seen. Is when it faces Manipulator in here. Still got the 2 copies of Mountain Giant. Not going for that weird, like, control-ish cube list that I see. I don't like that one because you can't Doom Guard your opponent out of the game. But it also has 2 copies of Tar Creeper, 2 copies of Doomsayer there. Copies of Defile, of course, are in this. You know, there's a lot of cards in here that just don't operate well versus Muz's deck. You know, you take a look at his Warrior instead. There's a Tinkmaster Overspark.
That's going to be a very important card to look at.
There's a Gluttonous Ooze. You know, he's got Big Game Hunter. He's got 2 Faceless Manipulators of his own. You know, one of the most powerful things that you can do against slower decks is eat something with a cube and then have it sit there and threaten pressure. Against Muzzy, if you set a cube down, he can just Faceless that right back. Plus, he's got a couple cubes of his own.
It's going to be very important cards, especially that Tinkmaster that you were alluding to earlier. I think Swaggyg brought the Cube Warlock as it is a huge comfort pick for him. It's one of his favorite decks to play. He does, you know, play it a lot in High Legend Ladder, and he does just pretty much excel with it. I guess he has put so many hours into the deck that maybe he sees lines of play that other players may not necessarily see. So that's why I always like watching Swaggyg play the Cube Block, because I think he's a very proficient player in it. He's one of the few players that still believes it's a very strong deck. I sometimes disagree with him. I don't think it's as strong as, obviously it's not as strong as it used to be, but I don't necessarily agree with how it fits into the meta now. But, you know, sometimes he just surprises me and always does well with it.
Sometimes comfort picks are good things. You know, like there is a lot of strategy implication to be taken into account for something, but if you just have a number of hours on things and it could be a difficult deck to pilot, you see some lines of play that other players just don't come across or haven't thought about or haven't encountered or what have you. You know, there's a lot of iterations of play with this deck. It's, you know, sometimes you get those ideal draws. You slam the skull, you get a Doom Guard, you cube it up, and then you have Blood Reaver Gul'dan. But what happens when it's slow games? and you got to take your time. What happens, you know, when your opponent has answers to your stuff and you have to figure out a way to deliver a small timing window of opportunity to pressure your opponent out?
And I'm kind of in shock here, Admirable. This is the first game I've ever witnessed Swaggyg play Q block that there is not a Skull of the Minari currently on the board.
Sounds like your nickname was incorrect.
I don't think it was. I think this is a first. And I think Swaggy's played thousands of games on Q block.
Muzzy also didn't have a one-drop, though. One-drop Muzz, they call him.
Get the shield slam.
Ah, it's true. Okay. So I was right and you were wrong, as usual.
I would not say as
usual.
Whoa! I feel attacked here.
You said as usual. That was you that said that, not me. Don't pay attention to which vocal tone it is. No, it was definitely you.
I think only 6% of people would agree with you.
Well, the one thing that's tough about Odd Warrior is sometimes you just don't really have much of a play.
Sometimes the best play is just doing nothing. I've heard they've been told a lot from, you know, a lot of great players. Sometimes the best thing is just to do nothing. Right now, Possessed Lackey's not really doing much of a threat. If you play the, you know, if you play any of these minions.
It's like the whatever.
Yeah, if you play any of these minions, you're going to give Swaggyg the chance to trade off and then do some kind of cube shenanigans. Whereas with this play, you force Swaggyg to try and clear it off himself, and he most likely won't have the mana to follow up with some kind of carnivorous cube play. So I like what Muzzy does here. Says, you know what? I'm gaining 4. He's only dealing 2.
+2.
No reason to do anything.
Yeah. Making progress by not going anywhere.
It's the craziest concept. You go further. You don't go anywhere.
Take a look at that.
I love it. I love just getting the Doomguard online. You got to do that eventually.
So what about it makes the Doomguard like so special here? I mean, this isn't a card you exactly excited to play from your hand when you're playing cube block. Like, what are the situations you do and what are the situations you don't?
A lot of times in matchups like this, you'll have a lot of dead cards in your hand. For instance, cards like Defile and even Spellstone to a certain extent don't do as much for the deck as you would want it to. Whereas if you get the Doomguard down as quickly as possible, even if you discard cards like that, even like a Void Lord. I mean, although Void Lord's a very powerful card, you don't necessarily need it in this matchup. You would rather get the Doomguard down, hope they don't have an answer, cube play dead, or yeah, cube play dead. That'd be pretty cool. No, cube Dark Pact.
it's like a play dead.
It's very similar.
Yeah, it kills your cube, but
same.
Yeah, get 4 health.
Play dead doesn't give you 4 health.
Yeah, it's true. It just gives you a stupid minion.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
I want 4 health.
I think it's an excellent point you make. You know, Doomguard is, you know, really there to. Well, that's not the way you want to do that. Now, Possessed Lackey's literally doing nothing. There are no demons left in the deck of Swaggyg. It's 2 Void Lords, 2 Doomguards. But the idea behind it is that you get Blood Reaver Gul'dan, you summon a lot of Doomguards. Doomguards deal a lot of damage, and Muzzy has to answer those right away. So I think, you know, one of the big things I'm looking at is Swaggyg has not powered out anything. Everything's going to have to be fair play this game. That's already a strike against the deck. Number 2, he's got to find a cube opportunity. Well, one of the Doomguards is gone. The other one's in hand right now. The cube opportunity was with Possessed Lackey. That's not there anymore. He still needs to find Blood Reaver Gul'dan. Very critical tool against Muzzy's Control Warrior deck. Blood Reaver Gul'dan's not there yet. You know, I'm having a tough time really seeing this come together and be the makings of a decisive win.
Yeah, this is where I say that I think Odd Warrior over time has become a little bit more favored in the matchup. Cube Warlock did get a little bit slower with Possessed Lackey's nerf on top of, you know, just sometimes, you know, you don't draw the Skull of the Minari and you have very weak turns. And with that, I think it was very unfortunate for Swaggy. Oh, the Cube is not what you want to discard there, but it's very unfortunate for Swaggy, as I think Cube Block was very well situated into the other 2 decks. I think against Even Paladin and against the Shutterwalk Shaman, it had pretty good matchups overall. I think this is actually its worst matchup, and I think that might have been why Swaggy led with it. Because if he hit the other 2, the Odd Warrior gets counter-queued, then Togwaggle Druid, and then just kind of go on with it.
So you think he got outpicked here, or do you think this was just unlucky for him? I mean, Last Hero Standing is the format where pick order, you know, very much matters. In Conquest, you got to win with each one of those 3 decks.
It's hard to say a lot of the times because a lot of players have different ideas behind what they feel is right. Some players feel like you always just, you know, when you queue it up, you just pick a random one. I mean, I think LHS, there's a little bit more argument for trying to strategically pick your deck, but in Conquest, a lot of players think, you know what, just go ahead and queue up a random deck, and if I get a bad matchup, that was just unfortunate.
Yeah.
And assuming my opponent is also going to do the randomness of the queue.
If one player in Conquest is queuing at random, there's no edge to be had.
Exactly.
You can't outpick your opponent. You can't get outpicked. It's just
LHS, however, there's a whole lot more factors that go into it, because once you lose with that deck, you can't play it again.
right. I need this deck to counter this deck, but he has this deck left. And if I queue with this one first and then it loses, I don't have a counter to this deck, and so on and so forth. You know, there's methodology to it.
And Swaggy might have just queued it because it was a comfort pick. He said, I can beat anything with Q block. I always have Skull. And as we can see, this game, he did not have Skull.
Oh.
Or Giant.
Yeah, no Mountain Giant as well. I mean, that's another heavy hitter versus Warrior a lot of times. If that's not taken care of right away, 8's a lot every turn. A lot.
This Doomguard needs to put in overtime.
Oh, gosh, that Possessed Lackey animation. Nothing.
The worst feeling. I mean, look at this Doomguard right now. He needs to put in so much overtime.
Well, it's Gul'dan's job to, whip those into shape and get him busy.
I feel like this is a bad, I feel like this reminds me of Bad News Bears, where they get that really good player, and that has to be the Doomguard right now. He just has to be that really good player that carries the whole team. And I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if one player can do it.
Sometimes you got to put the team on your back.
I feel like he's put more than just a team on his back.
Well, yeah, semantics. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think that bridge is going to get crossed very soon here, though. Muzzy's got a full grip.
Muzzy is at 35 life. Muzzy, if he wanted to, could just leave this Doomguard alone and take damage each turn.
Just walks
away. He doesn't even
away.
have to play anything. He just walk away from the computer, just make
Goes
sure
get the sandwich.
someone makes sure to hit the hero power button for him after every turn and be like, I'm good. I see Muzzy in line now, and he's like, oh, yeah, you can play that card. That's fine. You can play that card.
This jungle hides many secrets.
One thing going for Swaggy right now is the Doomguard has actually stuck. So if he does find that copy of Second Cube, it will allow him to get multiple Doomguards.
He's got about one turn to do it.
You're not wrong.
Considering that, Void Lord seems a lot more appealing. You get to shred all the armor away so that Blade Flurry is not as much of a... Reckless Flurry is not as much of a concern.
The one issue with Void Lord is if you get to that game plan where you're trying to develop as many Doomguards into the pool as possible, and then eventually, hopefully you get 4 or 5 Doomguards, you don't really want to be pulling those Voidwalkers back. There is argument for playing out maybe Spellstone onto the Elise, maybe getting the Tar Creeper down and fitting in a life tap. You could life tap first, of course, but you're right. Void Lord's just looking too good right here. It's the most protection for this Doomguard. This Doomguard needs to keep carrying.
Yes. Look, if that's your star player...
That Doomguard just got taken out of the game by an Ironbeak Owl.
Yeah, pretty much. This is looking really bad for Swaggyg now. If his next draw is not pretty much exactly Blood Reaver Gul'dan, every single turn that win percent's gonna slip a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower.
That Ironbeak Owl is the referee to this baseball game, and he just said, you're out.
So the question here for Muzzy then is, do you ever Faceless Manipulator first? He's playing defense in this situation. How much consideration is there to, just taking an opposing Void Lord and then ripping a silence?
I really like that. I mean, the Faceless, a lot of times, what's the best target for it? It is the Doomguard or the Void Lord.
Something with a cube with something inside of it,
course.
usually.
But as you've seen, one cube has been discarded, and I think it's a very good utilization of it now, and can also, Muzzy, if he wants to, could cube whatever he Faceless is on the following turn.
Oh, somebody shut that Void Lord up.
Get it out of here.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Muzzy's just being aggressive.
The game got a cube. He would have cubed this a long time ago. And Muzzy's right.
You're not wrong. I don't know how I feel about that.
I think I love it.
Really?
Swaggy's on to 14. Muzzy's just repping lethal. Can't just sit around forever.
Faceless on the Doomguard for charge damage.
Exactly.
So many possibilities.
Muzzy gets aggressive. That's usually a sign to me that it is the right play.
When Muzzy hits his opponent's face, I just assume it's correct. I mean, Muzzy's well known for spotting those scenarios where he's very comfortable and just pushes it face.
Now, the next draw was exactly Blood Reaver Gul'dan, so I think there is some hope here. Man, it feels like a long way to go before he's there, though.
I think just bringing back one Doom Guard isn't enough.
Oh, finds a cube.
That's what I was worried about, not trading here. Because now Muzzy, Swaggyg can just Doom Guard cube, and he's going to have more in the pool.
That's right. The Void Lords are not summoning Void Walkers here. So right now, there's 2 Doom Guards dead. You're looking at 2 more Doom Guards right there.
It's 4 in the pool.
That's a burst of 20.
And I feel like if you're Muzzy in this spot, if you kill the Doom Guard and don't give him the chance to replicate them, I don't see how you lose.
I mean, now it's looking a lot more dangerous to me. You know, we were looking at this game and going,
that's what I was worried about.
Muzzy looks like he's got it wrapped up, but left a Doom Guard up, cube gets ripped. I mean, that's quite unlucky, but here's the thing. Muzzy could have avoided that pitfall. You know, I've talked about this a lot with Fino. When I watch Fino play, he makes a lot of plays that look strange to me when I initially think about them. And then somewhere I see like one draw just ending it all. And I go, man, Fino does a great job of avoiding like disastrous things happening. And he does a great job of setting up disastrous things happening to his opponent.
The one thing I was worried about with Muzzy's line of play is that it's not like a lot of decks where you can follow up with that burst damage. Sure, there is the Faceless Manipulator onto a Doom Guard to try and fit in like 5 burst damage, but that's it. That was the only burst damage Muzzy had access to, and that's why I'm a little curious about not cleaning up this Doom Guard earlier. I think it's Gul'dan time.
If it's not Gul'dan time, I'm going to be shocked.
You know what's actually really funny about the Gul'dan is it almost gives Muzzy counter lethal if he were to MC tech one of the Doom Guards and then Faceless another Doom Guard. It's not quite enough because it would be 14 in total and the Gul'dan would give 5 extra life. But it's pretty close.
That's a good point. Muzzy also doesn't have any board clear in hand.
Swaggyg holding on to the Gul'dan.
Oh! Well, he hasn't seen any board clear.
This.
That's the thing. You know, if you go for a lethal push and it doesn't succeed, Muzzy is going to regain all of that health. That 3 damage you're doing every turn with the hero power gets outscaled by Muzzy's natural hero power.
I still don't know how I feel about this. I would have much rather seen the Gul'dan come down.
Well, we're looking at the hands, though.
That is true.
You're sitting in Swaggy's spot. Muzzy's had a full grip for about 17 straight turns. You haven't seen a Brawl. You haven't seen a Reckless Flurry. That Gul'dan's not going to work.
But the one thing I'm curious about is even if a Brawl comes out, let's say something like one of your Doom Guards lives, there's no real way to answer it on the follow-up because Muzzy will have no armor to work with shield slams. So if one of your Doom Guards lives, you push, I believe it would be 18 damage.
That's a good point.
And then you could just follow up with a hero power and face for lethal. And Reckless Flurry wouldn't work because Muzzy's not running shield blocks.
Now that's an interesting point to make. You do have to make room for the cube nonsense that's in Muzzy's deck. Yeah, there's
no shield block. So Muzzy can't even go shield block, hero power, Reckless Flurry.
Dr. Boom Flurry is one of the ones I think about.
But then you'd still, you know, I think the hero power might just be enough because he's
that's true, because then he loses the
20.
armor. Ah!
I don't know about
right.
that.
I think
don't
you're
know
right.
about that.
I've got the beast in my sight.
How much different is it this turn, though? No, now there's no taunt damage in the way.
I mean, it's going to be the same this way as well. But you took a little bit of damage from this Iron Beak Owl. There might be potential for a counter swing lethal because you have seen Muzzy push damage face. So, I mean, does Swaggyg consider the possibility of 2 Doom Guards being taken from him?
I am still shocked it wasn't played last turn.
Me too.
Something's got to. I mean, he's not going to outlast here. That's not the game plan.
How much damage does Muzzy have the follow-up if he does land an MC Tech onto one of the Doom Guards and Faceless is the other one?
So let's assume max damage, right? It's 2 Doom Guards.
There's 9 currently on
Muzzy's
board.
side. So it's 19 plus the 1 from the Super Collider. It's 20.
Wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
All right. Doomguard.
Second opportunity is just as good as the first.
Do your job, and that's push it face.
Putting the team on their back. Muzz down to 1.
1 health.
No clear.
If only he had armor to MC Tech, cube one of the Doom Guards, and then shield slam his cube. He'd be 2 armor off from doing that.
Not killing that Doom Guard.
I think cost Muzzy this game.
I think so.
And Muzzy's one of those players that's going to know that. Muzzy is one of those players that's very analytical and looks back on these games and says, I know where it went wrong.
Yeah, Muzzy's also one of those players just goes, oops.
You're not wrong.
And you keep playing.
Let's go, oops.
Yeah, you recognize it. Nah, what are you going to do now?
How does Muzzy get
It's
out
like
of
that.
this?
It's like that. The shaman guy in The Lion King. He's like, doesn't matter. It's in the past.
I'm
That's how I
drawing
picture
a
Muzz.
blank on that.
The movie The Lion King.
No, not
You're drawing a blank on that.
movie, The Lion King.
No, he's giving a speech to Simba when he's like the angsty teenager Simba.
Are you talking about Rafiki?
Yeah, that's his name.
There we go.
Muzzy drops game number 1. Swaggyg picks it up. Cube Warlock.
And this is where I'm scared for Muzzy now. Muzzy's best deck against that Cube Warlock, I think, just went out the window.
You think Odd Warrior's the best against it? Man, I think it's even
I
Paladin.
think Shutterwalk Shaman is very weak to Cube Block.
I think even
actually,
Paladin
I think it's close.
It's going to beat the tar out of this deck.
I don't have enough experience with Even Paladin to say.
Yeah.
I think Even Paladin is an awful deck.
Oh, well,
But that's me personally.
Let me introduce you to a card named Blessing of Kings.
On a Corpse Taker?
Or on anything, because it's Cube Warlock. And they're very slow.
Let me introduce you to Skull of the Minari.
Yeah, allow me to introduce you now to Equality and Avenging Wrath.
And then let me introduce you to Gul'dan.
Yeah, well, I don't
Blood
that's 10 mana,
Reaper.
man. 10 mana. You think we're getting to that point?
Oh, yeah.
You're
getting to that
crazy.
point. We're definitely getting to that point.
I don't believe you.
I think the only way it doesn't get to that point is if there's a coin Corpse Taker followed by Blessings of Kings. Because that spells GG.
Well, let's find out. Even Paladin, not the Even Paladin that I was, cutting my teeth on with good old Call to Arms.
Ooh, that was definitely a deck. I remember that one. That was a good deck.
That was during 5 mana Possessed Lackey and 8 health Dark Pact era. And Even Paladin was still doing a number on it.
I don't even know if I existed back then.
Real life.
I was just being reborn. I do see where Even Paladin has a lot of game against this deck, though.
Oh, yeah.
I can see it.
It is not I don't think it's an easy matchup for Swaggyg, but I don't think it's a tough one. I think, you recognize where your win conditions are very early on. You recognize what the game plan is, and you go from there. It's not like the odd Paladin matchup where they keep coming at you turn after turn after turn after turn for, the entirety of the game. But it's got some very heavy-handed turns where it can put on a ton of pressure in a very short amount of time.
There we see it was part right. There's that skull. I'm telling you, the nickname
Doomguard
is true.
did the hard carry. Now it's up to Swaggyg to do the rest.
I do like the inclusions of Tar Creeper into the Cube Warlock. Typically that slot is reserved for a Stonehill defender, but I think Swaggy's idea behind it was that he wanted something that was better against, say, Odd Paladin.
Yeah.
And a lot of times Tar Creeper just having that extra health and having that extra body, and against Odd Rogue, it does a much better job.
It's a reasonable defensive card. Walking you through a little bit of Muzzy's Even Paladin list here.
Walk me through it, Admirable. What do we got? What do we got? What are we working with?
Well, it's just it's 2-cost stuff, right? It's really the buffs, I think, are the important part of this. Major one you mentioned being Corpse Taker. To fuel that package, he's got Crystal Smith Kangor, which is the 1/2 Divine Shield legendary minion with lifesteal from Boomsday Project. He's got a copy of the Glass Knight, that Divine Shield's in there. And then you're looking at Wind Fury Harpy in the 6th slot for the Wind Fury effect.
Harpy.
Now, where the buffs are concerned, 2 Blessing of Kings, Valinir, and 1 Spike Ridge Steed.
Surprised there's only 1 Spike Ridge Steed. I think a lot of lists have been running 2.
I think it's, Muzzy's lineup to me looks clearly aimed at tackling the more mid-range style of stuff. And so you want to have tools that are there against aggression, but you don't necessarily want to overcommit to it at the same time. Odd Warrior's going to be fantastic against that. Even Shaman, I'm sorry, Shutterwalk Shaman, it pretty much holds its own against those if you have the right tools. And then even Paladin's still going to put up a good fight against those decks. You still have a 1-cost hero power.
Muzzy committed an equality for a Tar Creeper.
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me right now because the early shaping up of the damage is really one of the most important facets of it. Swaggyg took his time on this Doomsayer, and that's something that I really like to see from him. This is a control of the game style, and turn 4 is one of Muzzy's biggest turns. He has no way to punish this right now, so it's ship 2 damage, and then watch Swaggyg drop a skull to Minari.
I don't even think Swaggy's going to drop the skull. I think he's going to drop the Giant. He's already seen an equality. He knows that there's oozes in the list.
He has no demons in hand.
He has no demons in hand.
There you go. It's an easy Mountain Giant in that case.
Sold. I don't know why we turn everything into an auction.
Because auctions are awesome.
Would you buy a Mountain Giant?
Yeah.
How much would you pay for it?
1,600 dust for the 2 golden copies.
That's a mana.
Ship them here.
I'd pay 3 mana.
The strongest looking hand from Swaggyg on the follow-up, though. Mountain Giant's going to have to bring home some bacon.
You're not wrong. There is consideration for Defile Spellstone this turn. You do a little bit of damage to your Giant, but you guarantee that the board is clear. There's no Sunkeeper Tarim targets to kind of clear up the Giant later on.
It's another big one Swaggyg's got to think about. Even Paladin had hit a major road bump last turn, but Muzzy's he's not out of this. I mean, his hand's pretty darn good, I'd say, for the situation. Just good stuff.
Play. I like this play. Push that 8 damage face. Make the big noise, Admirable. Do you like the big noise?
Ha! That's what Mountain Giant says when he attacks.
Well, I like it because whenever a large minion attacks face, you just hear people clapping in the background.
The crashing sound.
You hear the crash sound and you hear...
That,
I don't know if you could hear the clapping.
That crash is... it's such a satisfying feeling when it happens.
It's called the big noise for a reason.
Is that what it's called?
Envoy called it that one time. He said, I love playing Mountain Giants because I hit them in the face and it makes the big noise. Ooh. And I've just ran with it ever since.
Okay. I
like it.
I'm picturing a buff card called the Big Noise, and it turns a minion into an 8-attack minion.
Admiral, don't spoil cards yet. Rastakhan hasn't been fully released yet. You can't just like throw the dev team under the bus like
I don't know any of the cards, man. They don't tell me that stuff.
There's a card called Rumble. It's like Brawl, except one side of the board wins.
Okay, I think you're just lying.
I might be.
Yeah.
Muzzy's got a tough decision here.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is
He's gonna put roadblocks in the way.
Well, you hope they're roadblocks.
But Hellfire.
You really don't want to see that one right now if you're Muzz.
Oh!
Wow!
Oh my gosh! It's on demand. It's on. Wow. Question is, do you fit in a life tap? You can afford to. Life tap, Hellfire, Kobold Librarian. I mean, Swaggy's got plenty of life to work with.
What do you tap into that's better than Hellfire?
Well, you just kind of look at your options. I think you're playing Hellfire no matter what, but you can life tap.
Yeah, and so,
you'll have the mana to do so.
Do what you want. Hellfire this, connect for 8 more damage.
Play a Librarian while you're at it. Why not?
Ow!
The big noise, Admirable. Does Muzzy have to? Muzzy almost has the True Silver into this. I know there's other options. He could go for the Avenging Wrath.
I'm looking at this, and there's a lot of reasons why Muzzy should not have used Sunkeeper Tarim last turn. Man, Sunkeeper Tarim last turn looked really good to me.
It really did.
And the reason why was Coin Lich King. Muzzy instead tried to put stuff in the way, shore up the Mountain Giant later on, then get to work with these big cards. The other fear, too, is if you use Sunkeeper Tarim, maybe Swaggyg, then he's prompted to cube his own Mountain Giant. Sunkeeper's still looking pretty good to me here, but my gosh, it's not the same card.
And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised here to see Swaggyg go for a line of play where he almost ignores that Skull of the Minari's in the hand.
Well, there are 2 Swamp Oozes in Muzzy's deck.
Exactly
Open
why.
deckless format, you know that card's going to get punished sometimes. I think Swaggy's got a lot of strong options.
I mean, there is the potential for Lackey Dark Pack, try and get, you know, the Doomguard to push a little bit of damage through. Even if you get the other Void Lord, you're very happy with that. And then next turn, you can just follow up with a Tempo Doomguard. I mean, half the cards in the hand, I think you're fine discarding. Swaggyg here, I think you have. Do you have to trade? It's a tough question. I almost don't mind it because you do know there's this Steed in the deck.
I don't want to trade at all.
But you're right. If you don't trade and you push it face, you do have the Doomguard on the following turn. It's a tough decision. Because at least with this line of play, you kind of force Muzzy to play Hero Power Steed if he has to.
He's got to have a big card. He's got to have something impactful. That's you know, kind of what I'm looking at too, is like, you know, trade or not, you're still in a really favorable spot. You know, Lich King puts a big damper in that play from Swaggy's side, though. You know, I think that was a card that was not necessarily on his mind in this spot. Godfrey right now, not enough to clear it up either. So Lich King is sticking around for 2 turns unless Swaggyg wants to ram a second Doomguard into it, which I promise you he does not.
I don't know, Admirable. I'm looking at the Umbra Doomguard right now.
You just want to ship it in?
Maybe crazy.
That is very crazy.
But I'm looking at it.
The end is coming! Who dares summon me?
What?
Ooh.
I am like stunned by this.
I kind
What?
of like it. Because if you don't discard the Void Lord, you get the Void Lord onto an open board.
So it's a risk-reward situation
I think so as
here.
well. And if you draw something like Gul'dan, you just win the game on the next turn. I think it was calculated risk from Swaggy's side, and worst case scenario is he doesn't have the strongest follow-up he needs, but with the Lord Godfrey, he's going to have board clears for the future turn that will help him develop a body, and if a weapon gets developed, he can also play the Ooze.
So just buy time, buy time, buy time, find
So,
Gul'dan.
Exactly.
Did Muzzy take an eye for an eye?
He did. I think the other options were the self-defense matrix, and it could have been like Hidden Wisdom. I can't remember the third one. I think it was Hidden Wisdom.
Wow. Well, now what?
You could faceless the Gluttonous Zeus.
I just cube it at that point.
I like the Tar Creeper, personally. Oh, that's the one cool thing about Valinir in this matchup, is because you have Faceless, you can Faceless their Valinir minion, and then cube it and get a Valinir of your own.
Oh.
There's a lot of little nuances to this matchup that make it very unique. It's 2 decks you don't see that often. So when they collide, sparks occur.
Muzzy's got a lot of damage, but not really any way to connect any of it.
He's got to find some way to navigate this to collect the damage. Swaggyg, although he had Skull early, he has resiliently held on to that card. I don't blame him. 2 Oozes in the deck. I think you saw Muzzy keep that Ooze on the left-hand side.
either, you know, just, I mean, he slammed a Doomguard, sure.
It's just too
but
slow at times.
that's what it felt like to me. I don't know how Muzzy gets back on board. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like he
might just be on a burn plan at this point.
It's very possible. You know, right now you're looking at this Valinir and you're going, I really don't want to take this damage, but at the same time you're looking at this Valinir and you're going, well, I really want to get this Valinir going.
Does he ever coin the hero power there?
Well, I'm curious when he's going to coin the hero power if he's not doing it this turn. You know, that's pretty
you
much
eventually
the only.
have to use the coin for the hero power.
It's the only thing you could coin.
Exactly. And Coin and Hero Power would have contested this ooze. I'm a little curious of what Muzzy may be holding on to that coin for.
I guess you could, in theory, coin a Hydrologist secret.
How many Hydrologists does Muzzy play?
2 copies of that.
So there is still a second copy in the deck.
I don't know, honestly.
Swaggyg just life tapping away. I think he's going to find out it's eye for an eye. Does this set up lethal? Swaggyg has to do something here.
It does sometimes.
I think Swaggyg is going to play around it with this cube here.
Wait a minute.
So if the
Wait a minute. That's game.
that's game right there.
So equality happens. Avenging Wrath resolves before that death rattle happens, though. Wow.
And I actually think it would have been game either way, because even without the equality, you could death coil the cube to put it to 1 health. And then Avenging Wrath.
Yeah. Wow.
That was a good spot on Muzzy.
I'm telling you, even Paladin, it's got like weird amounts of burst in it. Like Muzzy's hand was pretty much in shambles that entire game. His first weapon got oozed. Like it wasn't really doing anything, and then just all of a sudden damage.
That was really well played by Muzzy. Like you said,
One drop Muzz, they call me. The one drop.
One drop and even Paladin.
Well, that's why you play it. You always got a 1 drop. You know how important those things are?
Your Swaggyg here, you go for the Odd Warrior Q. I think Odd Warrior is pretty good against even Paladin. You have a lot of tools like Iron Beak Owl. You got your own Faceless. You got removal.
I will admit that, you know, it's a matchup I don't really know much about. It's you know, even Paladin, I think, had a resurgence. It was like a renaissance that happened where all of a sudden there was an even Paladin list and people are like, yes, it is good. I'm like, well, when did that happen,
Art
though?
was
like,
discovered.
I
The
don't
Mona Lisa was
understand.
painted. Like, we never needed call to arms.
Yeah.
We just needed Amani.
Yeah, you know, it's all the bunch of classes went through the Industrial Revolution and figured out the next just not quite the technology yet.
Wouldn't they
Going
have
back to
gone
basic
back in
mathematics
time
here.
because Call to Arms was like the future? Because it was just like so futuristic and amazing card, and then they lost it and they're trying to rebuild as a civilization. Is that what just happened with even Paladin?
Get that Morgan Freeman voice. You have discovered Gen Greymane.
Call to Arms was only holding you back, even Paladin.
What was the weird win where like you won like by diplomacy or whatever it was? Civilization. It was like the impossible win
I actually
condition,
never played
basically.
Civ.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just crazy. You're crazy.
I might have played ones like it, or I may have played one, but I can't remember.
I forget what the word was called. You basically just built a fantastic reputation, and like the way that the mechanism worked in the game is they were like, "We love you, you win," and I'm like, "Cool."
Sounds like my kind of mechanism.
It's impossible. I've never seen anybody win by that method except for like versus the AI.
Did you say Muzzy won by that method just now?
Well, I was, you know, trying to think about, you know, what archetype in Hearthstone would do that.
Right there, even Paladin.
Like Shutterwalk clearly gets to space first. They just blast off at some point.
Everyone else is just building their farms. They're trying to like develop as a society. Shutterwalk's already on the moon.
Yeah.
Would Odd Warrior be?
Well, this is like the trebuchets, it feels like. You just build up a big thing and siege the castle.
Odd Warrior's the castle. You're just dinking off the armor.
Yeah. Trebuchets were no joke. Now there's Corpse Taker.
Corpse Taker is definitely not a joke, especially if a Blessings of Kings is near to follow.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, Muzz has got to find a way to assemble significant pressure in the matchup. And that's looking like a pretty tough thing to do. Like, I've seen a lot of tools in Swaggy's hand that will eventually stifle this pressure. You know, what's like the major thing that Swaggy's looking for? Like, what's the turning point in the game?
I think as soon as Swaggyg can kind of clear the board state while developing something of his own, for instance, Dynamatic is a very key card to that, he's kind of in good standing. A lot of times even Paladin will run out of gas fairly quickly. So if you can kind of stage off their early pressure and then get to a game state where you start to play your own minions into theirs pretty efficiently, I think you're pretty fine off as Odd Warrior. Like I said, even Paladin runs out of gas pretty quickly. There's no inherent source of draw besides something like Hydrologist into Hidden Wisdom. Outside of that, it's kind of generated cards from Lich King or just replaying Valinir minions. But that's why we saw Swaggyg keep the Ironbeak Owl, is for Valinir.
He's got a big problem right now. I mean, rope is burning down. He's got to figure something out.
Definitely has to play something pretty quickly. Looks like he's going to put a hatchling in the way. And I don't mind this because you essentially force, hopefully, force off the Divine Shield from the Corpse Taker. That way you can go ahead and Hero Power Reckless Flurry on the following turn. If something like a Blessings of Kings were to come out, you could then backup plan, use the Ironbeak Owl to address the Corpse Taker. And you're still at a pretty decent life total. 27's pretty high right now. We've also seen Muzzy play around MC Tech quite a bit.
I don't know if that's by incident or by decision.
Well, he didn't Hero Power on some turns where he could have fit into Hero Power, so it's definitely by choice.
Okay, so that is very deliberate right there.
MC Tech is one of those ways to swing the board back.
Well, that coin certainly was a valuable resource, but, you know, I'm looking at Blade Flurry now. I'm taking a peek at Dinomatic in the coming turns. You know, Whirlwind Dinomatic, also a fantastic play to clear up boards where your opponent, you know, feels safe from Dinomatic, and then suddenly the whole thing gets swept out. I'm looking at Valinir, too.
Swaggy's going to be a little bit worried about the secret, though. If it is Redemption, it will bring back that Amani Berserker at a 5-1.
And it is Redemption. So the sequencing on Redemption is if things die simultaneously, it's order of entered play, which means that it's Amani Berserker first.
Oh, it's Valinir time. Muzzy kept that in the opening hand for a reason. Wants to get down as quickly as possible.
I'll tell you what, I'm scared for Swaggyg. There's a True Silver on that side of the board as well. Avenging Wrath is in hand to, you know, eventually bring that a big equality push. The timing window is near for Muzzy, and Swaggyg needs to pay a lot of attention to that. He cannot let this get out of hand.
See, honestly, I'm not that worried for Swaggy right now. I think he's got a good taunt to put in the way. I think he's going to fit in Hero Powers every turn. Unless Muzzy picks up a Serenite Chain Gang, when this Valinir lands onto one of the minions, Swaggy has kept the Ironbeak Owl since the start as a prime answer to that Valinir.
He has assumed he will have time to get to a point where if Valinir was there, he has a way to shut that down, because that is just immense pressure and damage throughout the game. If Muzzy's able to threaten with one single minion every single turn, and the Valinir pressure keeps cranking, and, you know, Swaggy eventually gets point. Oh my, this is just too much.
That's one of the ways that even Paladin can win this matchup, is with that Valinir pressure. But like I said, that's why Swaggyg kept the Ironbeak Owl. I think for Muzzy here, he's gonna be hoping it hits that Gen Greymane.
I hope it hits anything but Fuse. Okay, hit Fuse.
It's a little rough.
You know, something else to consider too is that Muzzy's able to get pressure down, and Swaggy's forced to answer with Super Collider at this point. The second assault of being able to have the Ooze take out a Super Collider, and then, you know, another pressure alongside it, that occupies 3 of Swaggy's mana with the Owl. You know, there are some timing windows in there where Muzzy can shake things up as well, but I don't know if he's afforded that liberty right now. I look at this and I'm going, man, I feel like he's got to play that Ooze.
I think he has to. I think that the Gen Greymane, although it is it's a consideration, I think it may just be a little bit too passive. I think he needs to put more pressure on than just that.
Yeah, I am looking at the Gen Hero Power. It outranges Dinomatic, but it doesn't put a Valinir activation into play.
And Hidden Wisdom, a lot of times, especially in Druid matchups, it's very strong, because Druid is forced to play multiple cards in a turn. With Odd Warrior, they are very rarely, if ever, playing multiple cards in a turn. Here comes that Ironbeak Owl.
Yeah, pretty easy one.
Good ordering from Swaggyg, just taking note of something like Repentance.
His hand is not what Muzzy needs right now. I'm looking at the big heavy hitters right now. Lich King, of course, is a big one. Corpse Taker, still a fairly troublesome card.
Even Equality, just to be able to Equality Avenging Wrath, get through the minions on board, push a little bit of damage face. Although we see the MC Tech finally got picked up. I think this is the turn where Muzzy is just, is he gonna respect it still?
6 health on board. Muzzy, turn after turn, has been very deliberate in not only playing around mind control tech, but also making Dinomatic have to combo with something if it's going to full clear.
That's such a funny balance to see. Making sure that there's like 6 health on board while not playing 4 minions. It's a lot of restraint.
Yeah, I mean, we're reaching the end of that possibility, though. You know,
eventually you have to extend into it,
or you don't extend enough and you don't have any significant pressure. You know, right now, though, Swaggyg, he's feeling some heat here. Like, anytime you leave a minion on board without putting a road bump in the way, you are feeling like Blessing of Kings is right around the corner.
I wouldn't be opposed to see one of the Dynamatics come out here. You clean up the majority of the board. You do leave 1 minion left over.
Plus the secret.
Plus the secret.
So in this case, it is 2 minions that get left behind.
Light the fuses!
Swaggy agrees.
Redemption gonna bring that Acidic Swamp Ooze back to the field. And this is what I was talking about, where even Paladin runs out of gas.
Yeah.
This curse has become our greatest strength.
More than
once
5
again.
health.
Yep.
Less than 4 minions.
Back in the same spot. No True Silver on board, though. Looks a lot worse when you get a tank 6 to get that done. Super Collider, I don't know, man. I think Swaggy's right at the point where he's, you know, coming close to turning the corner, though.
Definitely agree. Almost don't mind the brawl here. I think this is gonna be the largest scale board you ever get.
What if the Gen lives? You're gonna really hate that you brawled then, and that's gonna happen 1/3 of the time that you brawl.
You could go for shield slam or shield block first. See what you draw, because there's still 2 shield slams in the deck. After you do that, you could then commit to the brawl, and 66% of the time, you're completely happy, you're fine. 1/3 of the time, you took 1 damage because you did shield block for 5 health. You got further into the deck.
Remember that game 1 when Muzzy didn't kill the Doom Guard?
I remember.
That was much less chance to go bad.
Ooh, best minion lives for Swaggyg. Wouldn't be surprised to see him fit in hero power. Doesn't necessarily need a shield block. Oh, he's gonna contest the board.
I mean, Muzzy's been playing around forever. He might as well just play at this point.
I love the check of the MC tag. Like,
Yeah.
Did you stay alive? No, we're good.
Swaggy's down to 8. But Dinomatic.
Dynamatic, shield block, hero power. That's going to put him quite out of range of any kind of reach Muzzy can kind of find himself
Not quite in
into.
that order, but you get the gist of it.
Exactly.
Nothing's going to change the play for Swaggyg. He's slamming that Dinomatic. There's nothing in the deck that costs 2 mana.
Fit in the hero power. Start tanking up.
17.
Corpse Taker's
Muzzy's
not going to help
juiced.
you. I wouldn't be surprised to see Muzzy concede here.
Winter.
I think he's going to play it out, but...
Muzzy's no quitter until he quits.
And then he's a quitter.
Yeah.
Because he had to quit.
Yeah. Wasn't by choice. And I think now with Aziliax found as well.
Well, I'm trying to think what kind of sequence of cards Muzzy could draw into to give him a remotely...
So I'm thinking Lich King.
Lich King definitely has to be on the top of the order.
Thinking you need Army of the Dead from that.
Does he play Tyrion? I don't believe he does. I think a
No.
lot of lists don't play Tyrion.
Lich King is the lone top end.
Ooh, just the 1/8 drop?
Tyrion's actually like quite weak and odd and even paladin. Like it feels so weird
I've
to
seen it.
say that.
I know, right? Tyrion used to be one of those cards you just put in everything.
What now?
Yeah, you put your faith in the light.
And it would give you an Ash Breaker.
I don't know what he actually says.
I don't know either.
The song is
very
awesome.
angelic. That's kind of cool. When's the last time you put your faith in the Light Admirable?
It's been a long time because it's just not a strong thing right now. And Muzzy, this is...
Wild Pyro Blessings at King's Hero Power Go.
Yeah, he's on the last leg.
Hero Power Go. Swaggy G.
It looks like Swaggy G. Like, oh, maybe something. No, he is so safe right now. If you're Swaggy G right now, you're going. Yeah.
If you're Swaggy G right now, you're preparing for a 30-minute game against Shutterwalk Shaman, in which you just hope Shutterwalk whiffs.
Yeah, or you know, it doesn't whiff, and they held long enough to have a backup plan because Odd Warrior's not exactly an aggressive deck, so.
Or you find the most aggressive route possible. And
yeah, you're gonna have that old Zola right in a Stonehill curve.
Oh no, I'm talking about even more aggressive. I'm talking about going Omega Assembly into Eternium Rover and Beryllium.
Wow, that's sick.
And then you Zilliax it, and Shutterwalk just can't deal with it.
What? That's
then
like
you
7 attack.
Faceless it. I've seen him win that way.
That's about the only way he wins.
Or Shutterwalk whiffs.
Swaggy G up 2-1 over Muzz. Muzz is down to his last leg. Shutterwalk Shaman. It's do or die time. It's got to be back-to-back wins with it.
I think he can do it, though. I think Odd Warrior, I would typically say, is a pretty free matchup, I would have to argue. The only way it goes wrong is if the Shutterwalk whiffs. But Muzzy's one of those great players that's going to navigate it in a way that he makes sure the Shutterwalk has, you know, as high a possibility as he can.
There's also that alternative game plan of just
Tempo out.
mid-range deck. You know, Keleseth is a hell of a card.
None will survive.
And it's not impossible for Muzzy to just win via outright pressure as he's come styling with the new King Rastakhan.
Ooh, King Rastakhan.
I'm a King Rastakhan gamer.
Did I ever tell you the story about how I queued into a King Rastakhan and I thought my client was broken because I didn't realize it was a part of the pre-purchase? And I just thought I queued into one of the PvEs on ladder for the new expansion. I was about to just contact Blizzard and say, hey, Mr. Blizzard people, there's something wrong here.
Mr. Blizzard people.
Mr. Blizzard people.
Yeah, and then Dr. J went, oh, wait a minute, I'm just dumb.
That is literally what happened. I think I was in a call with friends. I was like, what is this? Everyone get in my game. What is this? They're like, oh, it's the pre-order thing. I was like, oh, why don't I have it yet?
How's he going to coin the Earthshock trade-off here? He says Manatide Totem is prime real estate.
It is extremely important in this matchup to make sure that gets as many cards as possible.
So you're a big Shutterwalk player. I mean, I know that your
Shutterwalk.
jaws bite and your claws catch. You know,
They've been biting and catching since the card came out.
what's Muzzy looking for, and what are the potential disaster signs that Swaggy G actually might have a realistic chance of pressure?
So Swaggy G is going to be looking for pressure in the form of the, you know, what I was talking about earlier with the Beryllium Nullifier, where he kind of makes a minion that is unstoppable for the Shaman to deal with. They can't hex it.
7 and a 3/8 with the magnetic. Can't be targeted.
Cannot
Okay,
be
yeah.
targeted. And a lot of times the Volcano won't be enough to answer it. I mean, that goes to show you how much respect Manatide Totem deserves. From Muzzy's side, he's going to be trying to make sure he doesn't get under too much pressure. A lot of times, you know, he won't be under a lot of pressure because, like you were mentioning earlier, Odd Warrior just isn't that deck. It's not typically a pressure deck. So he's going to be trying to do that, but a lot of times you just can't get there. And then Muzzy's going to want to capitalize on making sure he gets as many Serenite Chain Gangs into the pool as possible. Ways he does this is by playing Serenite Chain Gang and Grumble in the same turn. That way he gets both back to the hand. He's going to want to try and not play Hagatha if he can choose not to do so. And also, Zola the Gorgon is very important for getting another Serenite Chain. All of this is what Muzzy's going to want to do, and a lot of times he has the time to do so. Until Nullifier hits the board. Then you're sweating.
Well, one hex down. You know, a lot of Muzzy's way to fight the board is not exactly a good feeling against Odd Warrior. You know, if you're in that situation where you don't have the card draw, you're not, you know, chaining minions together, you're not doing the broken stuff, that Swaggy G just playing things that are big can be worrisome. Why the cornered sentry here over the Lord of the Arena?
Cornered sentry is a little bit more flexible. It also puts more health onto the board for Volcano math. You can also play it with more versatile drops, like for instance, you can go Ziliax plus the cornered sentry. The Lord of the Arena is a little bit more awkward to try and get down. And you kind of want to play multiple cards on a turn, go a little bit wider on the board state.
So from your description, this is very much a slam Dr. Boom on 7 kind of matchup.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You got to get to discovering, you got to get to shooting, you got to get to
You got to get to discovering, to kabooming, to punching, to armoring up occasionally when you have to micro-botting, breakdancing, booming.
I haven't seen the breakdance button yet, but I'm really looking forward to that one.
You never seen the breakdance Hero Power?
No.
Maybe my client is broken.
You just press it, he spins around the board. You're like, I didn't do anything.
2 mana, do nothing. That kind of sounds like Warrior.
Gotta get to dancing.
I saw that video of Dr. Boom breakdancing. You see that video?
Oh, that was a fantastic ad.
That's the Hero Power. That video clip just plays. Stalls your opponent for 10 seconds on their next turn because they're too developed in watching that video clip.
Oh boy, Swaggyg, where on earth are you gonna find yourself having pressure this game?
He's making do with what he's got.
Well, there's a Stonehill and a Zola curve.
And if he hits Delivery Drone, which he didn't hit, he hit Zap Cannon. Zapping is another thing Dr. Boom does, by the way. But if he were to hit Delivery Drone,
let me know what they are by the description.
Delivery Drone is the Discover a Mech.
There you go.
So discovering a mech, he could discover the Nullifier that I was mentioning earlier, and he could have put that onto the Ziliax on the following turn if Muzzy, allows the Ziliax to live. And I'm pretty sure you're going to see Muzzy hold on to the Serenite Chain Gang, so he can maximize his chances. Because right now this is nothing. A frog, a machine thing, and a cheese.
Yeah, you don't necessarily win via the pressure in this matchup. You win via the combo.
Either way, both these players are in for a long haul.
Oh, totems from Muzz. I mean, this is very deliberate, methodical play where he's like, these don't matter. They're never going to mean anything. They're just going to clog up the board.
That way, just in case he does draw something like Grumble, he does not want to get those back into his hand. It's just going to clutter his hand for the Shutterwalks later on.
Swaggyg feels pretty, free to let those pile up to a certain degree.
Swaggyg just going to be putting pressure on. No need to fit the Hero Power, and you'd rather have minions. Microbots aren't bad, not the greatest, not the worst. I think as long as you... The funniest part about it is as long as you don't see the 7 armor, you're kind of happy. 7 armor a lot of the times doesn't do you enough.
What do you need armor for?
Exactly. I mean, the Shutterwalks, when they come down, if it doesn't whiff, you lose the game.
I mean, Muzzy hasn't exactly been bringing the beats this game.
Freaky fresh. Bringing the beats. Oh, you referring to, like, beat down?
Yeah, like minions.
Oh, I was thinking of something else.
Oh, I could tell.
I was trying to find the game board where the beats were at, like where you don't.
Oh, the squashy ones with the golden boot.
Is the boot golden? I thought it was like a golden radish.
No, I just wanted to get people really excited, and then you had to.
Oh, there is a golden boot.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I wink at Admirable. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no golden boot. We apologize. It's public service.
Spoiler alerts.
Okay, then.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking, Dr. All right.
It's pressure time.
Get to work.
Gotta push some damage.
6 damage pouring in.
Ooh. Rack it
Big
on.
pressure on Muzz.
How will he ever respond?
God, Muzz is just drawing like so abysmally right now too.
I mean, to be honest, at this point, a lot of draws in the Shutterwalk Shaman are pretty abysmal overall.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them that aren't. Like Acolyte of Pain,
Acolyte of Pain would be good. I
Anatide Totem.
I believe a lot of the lists have been cutting it down to one Acolyte of Pain.
That's a good question. I'm going to check. I'm going to follow up on that card draw because there is 2 copies of Earthshock. We have seen the Ooze in here. You know, Ooze is a very common.
Typically, the second
one,
Acolyte of Pain is cut for the second Earthshock to be better against even Warlock.
That's an excellent point.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Muzzy were to cut
Lord.
the second Acolyte of Pain for the second Earthshock.
I'm going to have that coming up in just a second as I check smash.gg. You guys at home, if you're following as well, you can find all the brackets, all the matches that have been taking place, all the deck lists that are available. You head over to smash.gg, you find the DreamHack Atlanta event, all the info you want.
You can also check out your favorite players doing.
Yep, that's
You can
right.
see that Dr. J is currently 5-0 in Swiss.
That's a lie.
Potentially.
Yeah, 1 Acolyte of Pain.
Seen a lot of lists cut it down to 1.
Muzzy, I mean, he's going with Sarnat Chain Gang here. Says enough's enough.
Feels like he's got to put something on the board. Ooh, a Super Collider gets picked up.
Second Super Collider gets picked up.
You know, as soon as I said Super Collider gets picked up, I looked to the left side of the hand and saw that there was another Super
No, that
Collider
happens to
in the
me
hand.
all the time. The slower a match is, like, the more susceptible I am to that.
Mechathune.
Yeah, and don't worry about the text on that. I'm thinking 10 mana, 10/10.
I'm thinking Big Thune. That could be a new Cthulhu card. Big Thune.
This would be
What does
a
it do?
good time for a man
It's just
to
big.
play.
No text whatsoever.
That's the text.
Could you imagine if they printed a card? This card has no text whatsoever. But when you played it, there was a surprise. If you played it in the right situation.
Oh, you mean Ysera?
You mean Malaga?
I'm like, what the heck's a dream card? Nothing to do with Electra.
Nothing quite yet. Electra Storm Surge will be strong, though, if Farsight gets picked up. One of those powerful turns against the control deck.
Who's won?
Say
Super
who's
Collider,
won.
0. Don't worry about its past score.
We're going to see a Mechathune here.
I assume so. I mean, this is why you take the 10/10.
took
is
it
to
for
play
a reason.
10/10.
Sure, we can't wait the entire game to try and end with it. In a fantasy world.
Now that I don't think so. It's it's a thought. I just don't. You have to discount it. You have to have a shield slam with 10 armor at the end. It's a lot of things to do.
Idealistic
10/10's the way to go.
world, every Mechathune would end the game. But we don't live in an idealistic world.
Oh, it has rush too. I always forget that part of Dr. Boom. I wonder how many times I haven't attacked with my minion because I just forget about that.
Probably a lot.
So I'm going to guess this spells Volcano.
And if I can spell Volcano, it will be played.
Spell it quick, go.
Volcano. Volcano. Thank you. I was never good at spelling bees. I know there's like a bunch of people who would like spell the word out on their hand.
Use it in a sentence.
Volcano just got played. Volcano. Ooh, that's a draw.
It's really weird when you're playing a deck and it's like turn 11D and you're like 5 mana 5.
Did you just say turn 11D?
I was never very good at math.
Are you better at spelling? We can
No,
help each other
I
out
wasn't.
here.
Just after the volcano gets used. No!
I'm actually shocked to see that Swaggyg didn't opt to play the Cornered Sentry and then trade the 1/1s in. Swaggy. Oh my gosh, what a massive take. I'm wondering if Swaggyg took the Cornered Sentry with the plan of trying to play it during a Shutterwalk turn to make the Shutterwalks whiff. The only issue with that is you can just trade the Raptors in. But what if he's planning to shield slam his own Cornered Sentry? We're getting very
that
obscure
far
here.
down the road. You didn't trade in 1-1s to play around mind control tech. Like, you have lost it. You're doing the wrong thing at that point.
I mean, think about it.
Oh, I'm thinking about it.
The only issue is you'd have to have armor to do so.
And you'd also have to have a shield slam.
There's a shield slam in the hand.
And your opponent's hand size would have to be choked to where the 1-1's going back to hand matter. That's a very tall order. Second Volcano.
Acolyte of Pain, Volcano.
And that's a 2-4 Acolyte. So that's 4 cards Muzzy gets to dig into the deck right now.
The spells draw 4 to me.
This is the turning point of the game right here. It looks like Swaggyg might have been able to apply just enough pressure to, you know, nudge Muzz over at the end when he's really tired. But now I think that that has almost completely sailed away. We're looking at Electra Storm Surge to copy the Farsight, give Muzz 2 extra cards that are cheapened. We're looking at another Mana-type totem in hand. The second Saronite Chain Gang. A Hex for backup if Swaggyg is a big minion here.
This would be a good time for a master.
This all comes down to the...
Dr. Boom's right again. This would be a great time for a plan.
I think Swaggyg secretly has a plan. And I think we just have to watch and let it unfold. Uh-oh. There's another MC tag.
I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about this Electra Farsight.
It's one of the strongest plays against aggro. Oh, feels really good when it happens. 1 mana life drinker. Don't think the Storm is necessarily that strong.
He's just getting deeper into the deck. That's the key.
That's
he needs to
the big
find
important
the key
thing.
pieces.
There's also a lot of arguments in this matchup for whether, if you have Grumble and Zola in your hand, if it's better to play the Zola than Grumble it. That way you have a 1 mana Zola. That way when you play Shutterwalk, you can get the Shutterwalk instantly. The only issue with that is you put 2 Zolas in the pool, which is not
Fill up your
very
hand with 9
good.
mana Shutterwalks.
But you can also go Grumble, Zola the Grumble, take an extra turn, and get 2 Grumbles in the pool. And I think that's the way to go about it, especially in a matchup where you have plenty of time.
Be rushed.
The most grueling part about this matchup is Swaggyg has to play it out to its entirety just to see if the Shutterwalk whiffs.
Light the fuses.
He doesn't have to.
Theoretically, he doesn't have to, right?
I mean, no
when
one's
you're-
making him play the game.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Pieces are coming together.
Yep. How patient of a man is Muzzy, though? Can he afford patience right now?
I mean, I think you can just go Chain Gang, Grumble, Lightning Storm. And you're right. How patient does Muzzy want to play this? Could opt to draw a little bit more. I think he's going to find Zola eventually. I don't know. I like the urgency of the Grumble.
It feels urgent right now. Like, Muzzy is, this is not a small amount of damage on board. There's a laser queued up for the hero power. Like,
Zap,
this,
zap.
this is some real damage. Like, this is not a joke around about the Stonehill Zola curve anymore. This is like suddenly there's 9 attack on board. You know, he's got time to tank a shot or two, but
I like this play. I think this is the correct line to take.
and on Swaggy's side, you're not exactly excited about not killing a Grumble.
I mean, he can't kill it, but that's going to require 9 damage going to this Grumble.
So you got 2 turns to kill it. Muzzy's going to, well, assuming that the Farsight card is not a Shutterwalk, that is. You know, you've got 2 turns to kill it because Muzzy's overloaded. So if you don't kill it right now, you get 1 more chance next turn.
Okay, then.
But then if you don't kill it, that Shutterwalk is going to get slammed. You get a Grumble back in hand, you put a 1-cost Shutterwalk back in hand. You're not going to win that one.
I like this because it allows Swaggy to push a little bit of damage face.
Oh yeah, Swaggy's gonna be tanking this 7-shot, no problem.
Oh yeah.
He's not under any pressure right now. That's 7 health. Yeah, he would gladly trade half of that to do anything this game. Buzz, meanwhile, super safe in terms of the damage now.
Muzzy's got to be down like 6, 7 cards left in his deck at this point.
He's peeking, but he peeks so quick, I don't quite catch it. It's one of the things I love about watching the player perspective. Like, it's such a deliberate motion that some of the players take. Some of them are more frantic, and the cursor's kind of jotting everywhere, and they're clicking all over the board. See move.
For my glory.
Muzzy is still impatient right now.
Oh, there he goes.
Did it.
So you mentioned Zola on Chain Gang being a very real play.
Yes.
I think that's exactly what Muzzy's thinking about. You know, also just the number of cards in deck. If you get down to nothing in Shutterwalk fails, or you start, you know, chaining together a bunch of 9-cost Shutterwalks in your hand, you don't exactly have time to keep doing that. You know, eventually fatigue can set in.
Looks like Muzzy doesn't even want to go ahead and draw with the far sight.
Yeah, that tells me that there's few cards left, and he has a plan in mind.
There's 2 cards left. I believe it's Zola and Hagatha.
Yep. Could Pack change any of that? Is Gnome Feratu and Ungoro?
I'm trying to think if there was anything that could change that. Is there a Primordial Glyph into a Warrior spell that could potentially do something? Admiral and I are really deep in the tank.
Does Primordial Glyph discover class
would
cards?
discover Warrior spells. If it was from the Warrior, yes.
I've actually never seen that.
It's
which I'm
how
really
a lot of
surprised
times you would get Dead Man's Hand and Mirrors is either Chittering Tunneler or Primordial Glyph.
Ah.
Because it says discover a spell. Reduce its cost by 2. Living Mana with a Sunkeeper.
Just about to talk about that. The Living Mana Sunkeeper Tarum is like a very real thing that can happen as well.
You can even Earthen Scales one of your guys and then Shield Slam one. That way you can play the Terra on the following.
Well, he only had 5 minion slots on board. So it only takes 5 mana crystals at that point. Muzzy says, I don't have time. I got to get this Zola going.
And the one thing Muzzy did was by holding on to the far side, he would see if he drew the Zola or not.
Yeah.
And he might just... There's a potential for him to keep this as 0 mana
For the Shutterwalk.
in order to guarantee he gets another Shutterwalk back.
So in some respects, he took his time and delayed his combo, but in some respects, he also gave himself a better chance because now he has a second Shutterwalk to rely on to have this happen. So if Muzzy had drawn the Zola there, he would Chain Gang Zola the Chain Gang and then play another Chain Gang. But if he drew the Hagatha instead, he Farsights, has 0-cost Zola, and then sees if he goes crazy with Shutterwalks or if he has to, you know, have a second go at it. That's actually really clever.
Yes, I agree. That's a very clever spot from Muzzy.
I'm curious to see how the math works out on that, like what in terms of percentage
Well, what it would
difference
also
it makes.
do is it would mean that there's less minions on the board for the Shutterwalk to come down on the next turn. Because let's say Swaggyg couldn't answer the Zola, you'd want to try and get rid of it with the Hex in the way. There could be potential for the Zola to stick on the board and kind of ruin things. You also don't necessarily have to put Zola in your pool.
Right.
So you can guarantee 1 mana the entire time.
Should you succeed.
If you whiff, you've got no cards in your hand. And getting a 9-mana one alongside 1-mana ones isn't the worst thing in the world.
Light the fuses!
I want to see Living Mana come out here. I just think you need to put pressure on the board.
Light the fuses!
Swaggyg didn't get off the Earthen Scales in time. I just wanted to see the Living Mana, just because I'm not sure if it set up lethal or anything, but it could have done a lot.
Well,
That's going to be game right there.
yeah. And you get a glimpse of how the pros play this stuff so fast. As soon as it's on board and that it's going to get returned, you could double-click it while it's on board to activate the next Shutterwalk.
Click to continue.
Yeah, and that's a concession that Swaggyg has in place there. So these animations going to finish themselves up, and we're headed to game number 5. You know, that's all but a foregone conclusion in the Odd Warrior versus Shutterwalk Shaman matchup. I mean, it is almost impossible to get pressure going. You just don't have the tools to do that. The way that Shutterwalk operates, not really any interaction that is significant. Togwaggle Druid is the last deck for Swaggyg. That matchup can get down and dirty sometimes.
That matchup is pretty crazy for the most part. It's really weird because Muzzy's gonna be racing to his Shutterwalk combo, while Swaggyg is gonna be racing to try and make sure that Shutterwalk combo never becomes a possibility. All he has to do is get to Togwaggle as quickly as possible, take the deck. He can even do plays where he can naturalize something on the board, even if it's not the most impactful minion, and then just Togwaggle and try and beat Muzzy with his own deck.
It's like a race to swap the deck and hope that Muzzy doesn't get to Shutterwalk.
Yes. Or just take Shutterwalk from Muzzy.
So there is another way this can pan out too. It's you know, if Muzzy has a slow game like the one he just had and starts getting that deep into fatigue state, you know, Shutterwalk can keep going, but, you know, say it's one of those 9-cost scenarios where your hand gets filled up with Zolid Shutterwalks instead. Those situations can pan out to where Muzzy can get deep enough in fatigue that naturalizes can kill him in that situation. As far as pressure, Swaggyg is not going to have that. The main form of pressure is going to be Twig of the World Tree. Muzzy's got that checked. So none of the crazy, stupid early turns happen in terms of, you know, Swaggyg popping off with, you know, Madhouse 20-mana turns and stuff like that.
It's one of the coolest parts is you can gain armor and try and outlive Shutterwalk for a little bit if there's only like one life drinker in the pool. That way, eventually, like you said, you can finish off the game with the naturalizers.
There's potentially a lot of time. However, you know, if Muzzy gets rolling with, you know, 1-cost Shutterwalks and there's life drinkers, plural S, in the pool, you're not going to have time to do that. I mean, you could amass some crazy armor totals, but nothing I think that's going to outlive like a double life drinker Shutterwalk combo that's popping off.
And you deliberately saw Swaggyg keep the Spellstone. Now, Spellstone, you might be thinking, well, what would he really need to kill? He's not worried about the pressure. But this card right here is what Swaggyg is trying to kill, trying to delay Muzzy from drawing as many cards as possible. So Swaggyg kept the Spellstone to answer this Mana Tide right here.
Do you think that that's a smart keep or a foolish keep? Because if you look at the deck, I mean, half the removal of the deck's not really doing anything. 2 copies of Wrath, 2 copies of Spellstone, 2 copies of Swipe. He's got a pretty reliable, you know, kill package that's on Mana Tide Totem.
He does have a pretty reliable one, but he wants to kind of guarantee it. I think, on average, the Druid will draw much, much faster than what the Shaman can do. So I think if you kind of guarantee the Shaman's not getting kind of a leg up on the draw, you're in an okay spot. So I don't know if it was necessarily the strongest keep, but being on the coin, I think gives you a little bit more flexibility since you will have access to an extra card.
How long can this go on?
Well, it's something.
Allows him to play out Malfurion on the following turn. I like the mind control tech, just put something on the board to contest.
Druid gets ramp before turn 5 in this matchup. I feel like you go, okay.
We're in this, we're in this.
Yeah, you're like, we got a real chance. That Mana Tide Totem, however, is not checked at the moment.
Yeah, there's no Spellstone for that bad boy.
Engaging TC into dislocate.
Our 2 copies of Mind Control Tech and Swaggyg's Togwaggle Druid, so Muzzy's going to just trade off here.
Yeah, no reason to really risk that. And this is a scenario where I'm talking about if Muzzy isn't careful, Swaggyg could go for a play where he naturalizes, put Muzzy to 10 cards, and just Togwaggles the deck.
Now, Muzzy has been playing pretty much all of his stuff all the time, so I feel like he's going to continue to pay heed to that. and not keep too many cards in hand. You know, one of the parameters I operate by with Shutterwalk Shaman, this is just me personally, is I try to just play 2 cards a turn. Trying to make sure I'm getting 2 cards out of my hand a turn and drawing as many cards as I can in the process. Making some sort of board impact, doing anything. You know, how much more attention do you have to pay to something like that when you have Mana Tide Totem rolling? I mean, you know, overdrawing something in a key situation, that's one of the big disasters that Muzzy has to avoid.
There you see him there, just going to go ahead and commit the Healing Rain. Like you said, trying to play 2 cards a turn. As long as he keeps finding cheat cards like Prince Keleseth, he won't have an issue. But it's going to come to a point where he may have like double Volcano, double Storm, a Grumble, a Shutterwalk, or he kind of is forced.
Wow, Branching Pass. Lets him clear off this Mana Tide.
I like this a lot. You really need to answer that.
Very unusual use of Branching Pass, I'd say. But Muzzy's Acolyte's down. Both Farsights are gone. Both Mana Tides are gone. We're on natural card draw now.
There is one Acolyte.
That's been used. I got Wrath.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
We are on the most natural of card draws.
Your turn.
Draw 1 for turn. Pass, go. Collect
And-
1 card for turn.
And I'm looking at Togwaggle. I'm looking at Ultimate Infestation. I'll tell you what, if Swaggyg picks up Azalina in this spot, finds himself a Dream Petal Florist to discount, there's a certain point where you can rip Ultimate Infestation if you had 10 cards in your hand, draws both of them. And so now Swaggyg, we've now entered Togwaggle's territory. The combo pieces are in hand to swap the deck. Azalina is there to steal the King's Ransom, so if Muzzy swaps back, that means Swaggyg swaps back again. He's stolen the deck at that point.
And right now, Muzzy is working with nothing.
Swaggyg is about to have some explosive turns. He's going to slam Florist basically as soon as possible. Doesn't really matter what cards he uses afterwards. That's going to discount either Togwaggle or Azalina so that both can be played the same turn. And then from there, you just start ripping as much card draw as you can. You do not care what gets burned for the deck. The goal is to get to 0 cards and then swap as soon as possible.
Swaggyg is also one of those players that is just going to just pull the combos, I think, as quickly as possible.
Oh, he has to now. This is the one hope he's got.
Swaggyg hates like holding on to this combo. I like it. I don't necessarily agree with armor here.
Doesn't need the
prefer
pressure.
attack.
That's not how he wins.
You gotta do a little bit of damage.
I like the armor.
Fair enough.
I want as much time as possible if it comes to that.
Whenever I have a hero power that says deal 3 damage, I could deal 3 damage. Look, seeing this turn come out, I mean, you just Tog Azalina, give him the deck. There's 11 cards left. I believe they're actually pretty on par. But right now, if Swaggyg commits to this, and he doesn't even need to naturalize, if he commits to this, he knows that he will have the exact combo. So the only way Muzzy would be in a very beneficial spot is if Muzzy's hand was Shutterwalk, Grumble, Life Drinker, and Serenite. And he's been holding on to these cards for quite some time. Looks like he's going to go deeper.
I like drawing the cards. When I get in these Togwaggle situations, I rip the card draw and try to put my opponent deep into fatigue. None of that matters. That card is going to really upset Swaggyg because he's going to go, crap, if Shutterwalk's there, I might lose. But
there's no Life Drinker in the pool.
Yeah, there is.
Is there? Did I miss
Is there?
I don't think there is.
Maybe there's not. I feel like he played Life Drinker this. You could be right.
I think it's just the Chain Gang so far. And if you're Swaggyg here, I think you go for it. I mean, I don't see a reason not to.
What's left in Swaggy's deck now at this point?
There is a second Nourish.
No, 2 Nourishes just got burned. I saw that.
Did 2 Nourishes
Yeah, I was
get
watching
burned?
that.
Okay. The second Wild Growth got burned. There is a second Wrath, I believe.
There's no Branching Pass. No, that's the second Wrath. And he Wrath the Acolyte early on. There's a Naturalize.
You're right. Might as well Naturalize just to kind of get those cards in the hand. Get a couple more cards of his own.
Steals Naturalize.
technically naturalize again if he wanted to. I don't think he needs to. And right now, Swaggyg is the new Shaman player. And the funniest part about this is that even if Muzzy tried to do some cute shenanigans where he uses a twig play of his own to try and swap the deck back and get some grumbles going and try and find his own Shutter Walk, he has Ooze in his hand.
I don't think there's a way for. I mean, Muzzy's going to have to win this game off of Hagatha now in some fashion.
But he's only got 2 minions in his hand, Admirable.
Yeah, I don't think this works.
Both of these minions have to give Blazing Invocation, and both of them have to give. One of them has to give Life Drinker. The other one has to give Shutter Walk. There's a chance.
Well, he doesn't necessarily need Life Drinker to win. I mean, there are iterations of Shutter Walk where you can kind of fill up your board.
That's fair. All right, what's in the Hagatha? Storm is
But
not.
I mean, we're
that.
looking at a long shot. I mean, Swaggyg popped off with the Togwaggle, swapped the deck around, and this is down to the last leg. And we're talking. He's not getting the deck back, and he doesn't have a Shutter Walk.
Maybe Swaggyg somehow accidentally slipped a Shutter Walk into his Druid.
What's the card count right now?
There's 2 cards left in Muzzy's deck.
How many are left in Swaggyg's deck?
About 10.
That doesn't work.
There's a big differential there.
Thinking like an Elise from a Blazing Invocation. Keep filling your deck back up.
Okay. We're working with something.
I'm trying to think of all the weird stuff that can happen at this point because Muzzy's not getting his own Shutter Walk. It's going to have to be something strange from Hagatha, and my head is not piecing it together right now.
My thoughts are plagued.
Blazing Invocation into Elise Trailblazer, into Pack into deck, into Primordial Glyph, into 5 Primordial Glyph, all into Blazing Invocation. We're living in some less than 0.0001% worlds here.
So there's a card draw spell left. That's what Muzzy was waiting for. He's going to swap the deck back. He's going to emergency draw a card and hope that that's Shutter Walk.
But he could just die on the follow-up.
Yes, he very much can.
Because he knows. There's a lot of pressure on the board.
But that's what he was hoping for. He was hoping there's a card draw spell left in Swaggyg's deck, that he gets it, that he swaps back, draws the Shutter Walk. And it happens to be Ferocious Howl, too, so he does get 10 armor.
Not wrong.
Or 9 armor, excuse me, in this instance as well.
Another funny part about this is that Swaggyg doesn't necessarily have to commit to the spell. He can go face or take value trades or essentially do whatever, and then grumble the Togwaggle, and then Togwaggle back. That way he still has pressure on the board, and he puts a 7/7 on as well.
I'm just watching, like, how,
I mean, we're just gonna watch and see how it plays out.
I mean, like, this is the moment.
I must decide.
Muzzy says, if I do that, I take too much damage. I gotta start clearing this off. I know my opponent's got a Grumble in hand.
Wouldn't have drawn the Shadow Walk off the Feral Rage. Ferocious House, sorry. Swaggyg can start
Maybe that's
working
what
on.
Muzzy's like reading into the Aether right now, and he's like, no, that's not the one. That's not the one.
2 draws from now.
I can feel it. Wouldn't that be crazy if that's like if he waits like some weird amount of turns and just like hits the Shutter Walk though? Like that to me is like would be the weirdest thing. And that's what he's setting up here too. He not only wants to rip the Shutter Walk, but he wants to rip the Shutter Walk and have it be live as well. Muzzy's gonna quit. Yep, and I think it's just amount of time and pressure. Says, you know what, it's good enough. Swaggyg 3 games to 2 over Muzz in this one. I don't know what Muzz is shaking his head for. I'm certain there's something that he sees he did wrong. It's every single time I go talk to a player, it seems to be what the report is. They're like, I played so bad. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. You made like 2 little mistakes. From my perspective, anyway.
It's also long Swiss rounds. They've been
Muzz is
playing
hard
for a
on
long
himself.
time now.
Every player's hard on themselves. I don't know why they are.
These are long days. It's not easy to play 5 rounds of Swiss in a row with minimal breaks and a lot of stress and pressure, but Muzzy's just as good at it as the very best players in the world, so he's going to be going 4-1 into tomorrow, a very respectable record. Swaggyg, 5-0. I know that's got to make you happy, Jay.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I think Swaggyg is one of those players that deserves, a good breakout performance. So I'm hoping he keeps it up. I'm hoping he shows, the world what he's got. So
I want to call out chat on this one too. 94% to 6%.
Yeah.
6% of you were on
Where
the
are
game
my
today.
6% out there? Go ahead and cheer. Woo woo.
I have paid for my transgressions as well. I picked Muzzy. It's okay.
Sorry, Muzz. I picked you too. That's okay. Muzzy's still got a great shot at making top 16. That is going to do it for us here today, however. 5 rounds down. We've got 4 more rounds of Swiss to go tomorrow, followed by our cut to top 16. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope to see you back here tomorrow morning, and we want to give special thanks to Corsair and LG for making this entire tournament experience possible. But until then, we hope y'all have a great night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for day number 2 of DreamHack Atlanta 2018.